and welcome to the Emirates Airline Festival of Literature, and in particular to this event, which, as you know, is to celebrate International Women's Day. Thank you so much for coming and being here as part of that. My name is Julia Weeder. I used to be the BBC Golf correspondent here, and I also wrote the book Telling Tales of Oral History of Dubai. This panel is fantastically diverse. There's so much variety on here. We have British autobiography, we have children's writing from a Filipino writer, we have Emirati science fiction, and we have Jamaican poetry and literary fiction. Fantastic, exactly. Our theme this morning is Be Bold for Change. So let me just introduce briefly our wonderful panelists. Jo Malone's My Story is here. It's that wonderful thing, a rags to riches tale which is full of boldness and determination and change. Candy Gourlay began writing when she was a child. She cut her teeth on political magazines under the Marcos regime, and she continues with her award-winning books, including Tall Story and her latest, which is Shine. Noura and Noman is the science fiction writer, the young adult Ajwan trilogy, and she's also the founder of the Sharjah-based publishing house Maktuta Hamsa, if name Tisa, manuscript 5229. And there are her. They get heavier. There's the trilogy. Kai Miller is a man. Jamaican poet and author who writes on blogs on gender and race and Jamaica. His latest novel is delicious, August Town. The last one, Born a Woman, is another of his novels, and his novels are packed full of resilient female characters. Ladies and gentlemen, be bold. Welcome your Be Bold for Change panel. Begin by asking you what being bold looks like for each of you. Jo, let's begin with you.
Being bold is, for me, is being true to yourself. Be the person that you are, and don't be afraid of the highs and the lows in your life, and create your own landscape. So the view you want to see for your life is you have to create your own landscape, and sometimes you have to be very bold and move a lot of boulders out the way in order to see and get the view.
Thank you. Candy?
I think for me, being bold has something to do with, being somebody from the Philippines. We have this narrative of immigration and working somewhere that you do not originally come from. And same thing happens to me. I left the Philippines in order to marry, to be with the person that I love. And being bold is about being somewhere that is not your safe zone, being brave enough to say, yes, I can make a life somewhere that I do not know anything about.
Thank you very much.
Like we discussed, Julia, but first, of course, I do agree with Jo and Candy that it is really being yourself. And sometimes being yourself is very difficult because it's unlike anyone else. And so you break new grounds, you make new things, you basically create something that almost is non-existent, which is very hard. And being bold in Arabic, when it's stuck next to a feminine of a woman, is not the easiest thing because it usually has negative connotations. But being bold really is doing what you feel and you are convinced is the right thing to do, and you do it, no matter what the naysayers might say.
We'll come back to that later. How would you define it for you?
When I was telling Candy this story earlier, it was a strange way to answer the question, but in Jamaica recently something happened, and I won't go into the full story, but it was a kind of violent act against a woman. And several of my female friends were extremely angry on Facebook. It was just a lot of anger coming out. And another friend who considers himself an ally said, well, I get your rage, but this isn't opening up discussion. You're kind of shutting things down. And I got very upset by this, and I thought in that context, being bold as a man was being silent. And allowing space for other people, allowing space for rage. You know, sometimes being bold is not being yourself, is allowing space to other people, is just shutting down for a little while. I mean, sometimes being bold is that as well.
That's also about not following the flock, isn't it? Particularly in this time where it's so easy actually to retweet things or to put your ideas out there and just add to the cacophony of noise that there is.
No, exactly, yeah, because everyone wants a voice in certain moments, but sometimes you shouldn't have a voice. I was wondering if I should be on this panel at all, but well, thank you for having me.
So Noura, let's come back to this idea of language, and perhaps we can pick up in Tagalog as well, Candy. What is the word for bold in Arabic, and tell us about those connotations that it has?
So it's either قوية or جريئة. And القوة والجرأة, strength and boldness, is usually associated with being a man, being strong, being able to stand up to conflict. And when a woman says her mind, or she takes a stand or something, if they say about her that she is bold in Arabic, قوية, and I'm not saying Arabic because there are 22 Arab countries, 22 different cultures. The Arabs know this, they know that we're different from each other. And some of the people from the rest of the world don't understand that there is a difference. But in the UAE at least, and maybe in the GCC, when you say that a woman is bold, in a way, it's a little bit negative, that she is like a man if she says her mind or if she stands up to something. It's changing, obviously, especially when you have such a slogan or a hashtag as they're using it now. But there are still some people who still think that bold should be connected with femininity, unfortunately.
Do you see similarities there, Candy?
Well, yeah, because bold is like, you know, that Superman and people with muscles. And the other day somebody on Facebook commented about some issue and said, they need to have balls. And my comment was, balls are so overrated. What about humanity? What about courage? What about all the other things that we've got to have? Balls? That's the basis of boldness? In Filipino, in Tagalog, the word for bold is tapang. And yes, it is a kind of male, a gendered thing. It feels like something that's male. And the courage that a woman has to have, it's not the same as the kind of courage that you see men exhibiting, the whole kind of kapow kind of courage. Because in my experience, and I was a journalist for a long time, and I did, when I moved to England, I did a lot of freelance journalism, which involved interviewing Filipino migrant workers all over Europe. I was working for a magazine called Filipinos in Europe. And in my experience, the boldness that these women exhibited, leaving their families, their culture, to go to a strange place, it was not about the quick fight, fierceness, yeah. You know, it was about endurance and surviving and keeping on and on, going and going. And it's the same thing that I took a lot of inspiration from it, becoming an author myself. It took me a long, long time to learn how to write a book, learn how to write a book that will matter to somebody. 10 long years, you know, I was telling somebody earlier today, the first year that you're writing the book, it takes me 5 years to write a book. The first year you're thinking, I think it's going to take a long time to write this book. The second year you're still typing away. You're thinking, well, I'm almost halfway there. The third year you're like, you pass the halfway point and you think, I want to stop, but I can't turn back. And the fourth year you finish the book and you realize, this is terrible, I'm going to rewrite the whole thing. And that's being bold, is saying, okay, I'm going to do it.
And so there's an element of perseverance.
Perseverance,
Yeah.
endurance, yeah, going.
So Joe, when you're thinking about being bold, has it for you in your life been piecemeal, or has it been, that's where I'm going, and everything channels to that? And is it organic, actually, rather than piecemeal, perhaps?
A little bit of both, I think. I think boldness to me comes in many forms. It's like your friends. And boldness will mean strength. sometimes when you need to be strong. As somebody, like when I was a little girl, I'm horribly dyslexic. And I wasn't diagnosed with dyslexia until I was well into my teens, so I was out of school. But I remember once sitting in an exam, and I copied the girl's work next to me because I just didn't want to be last in the class anymore. And I didn't want to cheat, but of course I was caught cheating. And the teacher made me stand on my chair, and she said, "Jane Malone, you will never make anything of your life."
Oh.
And how was she? So boldness, it was that boldness that I was standing on that chair thinking, I will make something of my life. And then that boldness when, I had to start that very first business, and everyone said, "You've got no qualifications, you're not qualified, you've got no money." That boldness that says, and I think entrepreneurs today and people that start businesses, the courage, the boldness that they have, and do you know where it comes from? Sometimes it's one tiny little grain of confidence. That's where it comes from, the boldness. That confidence which says, "I will take one more step. I'm going to take that step back that you've taken from me, and what's more, I'm going to take another 10 steps." But that little bit of confidence within you says, you can. And I spend most of my time at the moment going around the world sharing my story, because my story says, if I can do it, you can do it. And that's where boldness starts to really change a generation and change a world.
So how do we take that one grain of confidence and grow it?
We do exactly what we're doing. We share our stories. Yeah. We share our strength. We share the moments with the cracks. Don't tell everybody how well and great we are. Tell them the bits in between, because it's the bits in between that people then relate to and say, "So she did go through tough times. So she did get all her packaging wrong," which I did. And I've done all sorts of terrible things. And by sharing our stories or creating stories, creating stories about amazing, strong, resilient. That word resilience is like gold to me. And resilience is empowering, and it lifts you up, and you think to yourself, because I can tell you, bad times will happen, and they'll happen to every single one of us in this room. The strength of humanity of being that bold person is you stand up, you dust yourself off, and you say, "I'm going to carry on towards my destination." That is, I think, that resilience and that boldness.
So when you're creating these resilient female characters, where have they come from for you? Are they based on an amalgam of people that you've known, or are there people that come to your head? Tell us how that process works. Where's the magic?
All kinds of ways. They come from real life, they come from things you make up. Part of it for me is I think when I hear someone telling a story in my mind in Jamaica, it's always a woman. Mm-hmm. And so if I go to the page, I have to write as that woman. I just don't know how to tell a story as a man in Jamaica. That just doesn't happen. One of the embarrassing things that happens, people always come up to me, women always come to me and say, I don't know how you know women that well. And I go, I don't. I genuinely don't. I just know how to write in that voice, because that's the voice I was always reading. So I'm copying style. I'm not copying any kind of hidden knowledge of women at all. But sometimes I think sometimes you have to look back in history, and that's what I often do. And acknowledge people who have just kind of phenomenal strength. I'll tell you another kind of story that I'm writing, which might seem that it's not about this at all. Recently I'm always saying I get very angry. I do get very angry at things. But a Jamaican journalist wrote a very nasty column about what he says in his column was this thing he saw parading in the streets. And he called this person an it, and I got very irate, and I wrote, and I think that's the worst thing you can do as a writer. I think what you do as a writer is that you give people themselves. To tell people that they are not is just the worst sin you can commit as a writer. So I had to write about this. And it was a transgendered man, a man who was dressed as a woman. And so he thought this man was just a caricature. And in writing about this man and trying to give him that personhood, I was looking all the way back in history and this wonderful moment that happened in Jamaica when a group of people protested about unfair taxes, and it was a bunch of men who dressed as women and rioted. And I tried to give this man that history to say that boldness to dress as a woman and to create havoc, that's amazing, that's incredible. And I'm always interested in that man who doesn't think it weak to be called a woman. And I think that's probably one of the hard things when we call people effeminate or things like that, because you think it's insulting to be like a woman. And I'm like, that's not an insult, that is strength, that is beauty. Let's honor those kinds of acts. So oftentimes in fiction, I go back to historical moments and try to rethink it and rework it and to give it back the magic and the courage and the dignity that it was in that moment, and relate that to how people operate today.
Let's go back to this idea of mistakes, Noura. What mistakes or situations or obstacles have you faced that have ultimately perhaps made you more bold?
Oh, they're very private. I don't think I should say
We're sharing our stories.
But maybe I should say that something that happened to me many years ago, maybe 9 or 10 years ago. And by the way, when I was a child and I was a teenager, and even when I was a teacher in school, because I taught 6 years, there was this thing about me where if someone were to look at me with a little bit of disapproval, I would just cry and cry and do absolutely nothing about whatever it is that caused the whole situation. I'm no longer like that, and that's why I'm referred to as bold in the bad way, not in the good way. But I remember also that we had this training course, 3-day training course, where we were put through these crises, one after the other, for 3 days, with 7 other people, 4 women, 4 men. We were all Emirati. And at the end of it, the people who were giving us this course and these exercises were supposed to sit with us one-on-one and tell us what they observed about us. So one would tell us what the tests we had gone through were saying about us, and the other one was supposed to tell us all the interaction that he observed. And when he sat me down, he said, "Noura, you were great. I mean, obviously I was in my 40s, so I wasn't in my 20s where he said, "I don't know what I can help you with. However, if I could just point out one thing. You are made of steel." Now that changed my life, I must tell you. I didn't know I was made out of steel. You are made out of steel. However, when it comes to certain situations where there's conflict or decisions, you take a step back and you become an Emirati mother, an Emirati wife, an Emirati woman. And I asked him, "Is that good or bad?" He said, "I can't tell you. You're the only one who knows if that is a good or bad thing." And that week I went and I did something awful and got someone to resign. But it was the right thing to do because that person was stumping, just basically preventing the growth of that situation or that place. But that was when I found my voice. I found that what I was doing before, and I thought it was the right thing to do because it was the cultural thing to do, was not the right thing to do. And I took a stand.
It's interesting that you say that somebody told you that you're a woman of steel. I wonder how much, Candy, we need somebody to tell us before we know it in ourselves.
It's a funny thing, I think books they say books are like windows and mirrors. And when I was a kid, I never saw myself in books. All our books were imported from America and Britain, and I loved them all, but it made me think as a child, because I loved books so much, I thought that maybe Filipinos were not allowed to be in books. And it took me a long, long time to give myself permission to write our stories. I thought that who would, if these books showed all of these children living in brick houses with blonde hair and lovely fluffy pets, surely it must mean that Filipino experience, the poverty, the shanty towns, the jeepneys, the buses, the pollution, the coconut trees, they don't belong in books. And I really, really believe that. And when I wrote my first novel, I spent 5 years learning how to do it. I finished it, and I had written a British novel with an English character, an English setting, an English war. And one of the literary agents I approached rejected it, and then she said, well, so there's no connection between you and your book. You know, and I was the first Filipino author to ever approach her. She was, I like your book. It's really funny. It's got a good twist, a nice idea. Where are you in this book? And I could have taken that as a kind of racist comment, meaning that if you're Filipino, you've got to write Filipino settings. But I realized that I had been afraid to put my Filipino-ness into the book. I thought that, I really, really believed that I didn't belong in the book. And I had to screw up my courage and say, okay, I'm going to write a book that has a Filipino in it. And when I go to schools, I talk about that experience. And I say, you know how when you're taught how to write, they say, write what you know, and you'll be able to write. For me, the turning point for me was when I realized that it was write who you are. If you write who you are, you can put your heart and soul into a story, and your reader is going to hear the heartbeat. And it was only when I started to write who I was, to put in my experience, which is the classic Filipino experience of my father leaving home to go and work in the Middle East. You know, all of those things, being left behind, feeling really insecure about being short and Filipino and brown and poor. And I put that all in. My stories are filled with all of that. And to my astonishment, that was what got published. My book was published. It has a Filipino nurse in it, a boy who's left behind, short people who love basketball, and it's so Filipino, earthquakes, disasters, everything that happens to Filipinos. And suddenly, my book is published in England, and I visit schools as an author. And I arrive in a school, and the children are all going, Bernardo Carpio, which is a Filipino giant. And I'm like, I can't believe it. White children reading about Filipinos. And I say, does anyone know about the Philippines? And children raise their hand and say, my cleaner is a Filipino, my nanny is a Filipino. And I say, tell them you met me. And it's just the most amazing experience. Oh, can I add it one more time? I don't see very many Filipino children in English schools. I go to lots of schools. But one time I went to this one school, and suddenly I had this audience of Filipino children. And I didn't know how to react. I told my story, and then they were silent. They didn't do the usual thing of, hey, at the end. And so they all stood up, and they walked up to me, and they formed a line, and they took my hand. Can I take your hand?
Yes.
And they went like this.
Oh.
Which is what you do in the Philippines. You do that to show respect to your elders. And I was just like, oh my God! And that was one of the most
Anybody else got goosebumps?
Yes.
Great. So this idea of, obviously, Joe, you believe in yourself, but who has been important in terms of other people believing in you and supporting you on your journey?
I'm not the most confident person in the whole world. I can do things like this, but if you put me in a dinner, I get so nervous. I have panic attacks just before. So everybody has their vulnerabilities, and I don't always believe in myself, actually. There's often moments when you're doing something and you think, have I got it wrong? And that's where people just stand by the side of you and say, you know what, and you know what, even if you do get it wrong, it's okay. Because we're human beings, we make mistakes, and as we move forward and you grow as a person and you travel life adventures, you're going to make mistakes, that's okay. But I think having great people alongside you, so, my husband is my best friend. I've been married to him for 32 years. We've built a business together. We've raised a family together. We've traveled all the way around the world. And he, it's funny, when I'm down, he'll be up, and vice versa the other way around. My team, Charlotte's sitting in the audience. Charlotte and I have been friends for 17 years. We've traveled around the world, we've worked together, and she and I are, if I feel like, did I get that right, or did it? And she'll be critical, but in such a loving way, because we have to be truthful with each other. You know, there's no point just telling people how wonderful they are if deep down inside you know that wasn't on. So but let's do it in kindness and in love, and always have that person in the forefront of your mind. You want the best for that person. You want them to be confident. So I wouldn't be where I am today, obviously, if I hadn't been for the people. And I've never been frightened of saying, I don't know how to do this, can someone show me? There's no shame in that. I mean, when I go to a bank, I can't fill out a form because of dyslexia. I have to go and get, as a 52-year-old woman, I have to go and get someone to help me. Now, when I was much younger, I was so embarrassed by that. Now, because you know what? I can't fill out a form. But if I put 10 notes in front of that bank manager, no matter how smart he is, he will be able to make the payments. So we're all, you know, all of us, and we all are equipped with the ability to help each other. And, you know, having a company, and we employ mostly women, we have token 2 men in our company. But I want the best for both male and female. I want them to be the best that they can. And part of my job is to make sure their dreams are fulfilled as much as mine. It's not just about earning a wage and going to work and doing a 9 to 6 job. It's not about that. It's about really enjoying the moments that you're there and seeing other people really grow. So that's vital. Vital to happiness and unity.
Yeah, and that passion that you get when you believe in something and you take people with you is wonderful. So Noura, it was pretty bold to write in Arabic young adult science fiction. Just tell us about the landscape before you did that.
Well, before that, I'd never written anything in fiction. But at the age of 45, my kids were borrowing from my library, which was exclusively English. They were reading Harry Potter, the Hunger Games, and Divergent, and all of these things. Actually, Divergent came from afterwards. But anyway, that's beside the point. So I decided to go out and find Arabic books, not necessarily Arab themes, but Arabic books in Arabic for young adults. Now, at the time, young adults was not a term that was used in the Arab world. And now it's quite common. I looked for books, couldn't find any, unfortunately. So, as my husband had been telling me for years to write, and my friends also were encouraging me, I decided to write. And the thing that I knew the most, because I had known since I was 12, was science fiction. And of course, when you go to theaters here, movie theaters in Dubai, you notice that science fiction movies are almost always sold out. So there has to be some sort of attraction. So if it was written in Arabic, maybe they would deign to read it. Of course, my children took a year to deign to read my book. But they have all read at least book 1. And 2 of them have finished book 2, and they are now reading book 3. It was difficult because for 33 years I had been reading English exclusively. I wasn't really familiar with the way Arabic novels were written, so I wrote my book the way English was being written, and it was done badly for the first 30 pages. My son, who was probably 22 at the time, said to me as soon as he read the first 2 pages, and he said, "Mama, do you realize that you write Arabic like you write English?" And I knew what he meant. It was a very bad compliment. But I knew exactly what he meant. It was 30 pages before I found my voice as an Arab writer. But I am very proud of those first 30 pages. And I decided that it had to be a girl, the protagonist. She had to be a refugee, because we have more than 15 million refugees in the Arab world. And they're all numbers. They don't have names, and their dignity has been taken away from them. Their decision to decide their own fates has been taken away from them, and that's exactly what happened to Edgewan. And by the way, I just have to say this. Are you familiar with the test, the Bechdel test?
Yes.
Yeah. So I didn't know anything about it, but I had translated my book also into English, and this Arab lady who lived in Australia, who couldn't read Arabic, asked me for a copy of it. So I emailed it to her in English, and when she wrote the review on Goodreads, she said, this book passed the Bechdel test in the first few pages because it had more than one female character. Both of them meet and speak to each other. and both of them don't talk about men. They actually talk about the plot of the book itself. So I was very proud of that.
Yeah.
And my greatest challenge was writing in Arabic. It was not easy.
So tell us about your character. What's she like?
Adwan is 19. She comes from sort of like a privileged background. Her family rule the city. They are from a race that breathe. They're amphibian, but they don't have gills. I have to really say that they don't have gills. Everyone reads that they think she has gills. They can breathe both air and water. And the very first pages of the book tells you that her planet has been destroyed. Her family, are dead. Her husband, she was married. She's 19 and she was married. We're allowed to do that. Plus, I'm not changing it because the whole thing is about her trying to find her son, and she had to be married to have a son, to be kidnapped, and then the plot happens. Everyone keeps saying, "But why is she married?" It's a YA book, and this thing where she's privileged, she's stood up to her parents, she's made the decision to marry this man, the planet gets destroyed, she's a refugee, she's weak, she can't make decisions for herself, her child is taken away from her, and now she has to turn her life upside down and go against the principles of her own race, which was somewhat pacifist, and become a soldier. She's empathic as a superpower that was awakened by the disaster, and now she has to kill. How do you kill when you're empathic?
Okay, so I'm now going to ask Kai to talk about Maltafi, at the other end of the scale in so many ways, but still a strong, bold, wonderful character. And this is from Kai's book, August Town.
Yeah, wow, Maltafi. I mean, she's probably the most extraordinary character to me, only because I knew who she was sentence by sentence, and that's never happened to me before. Oftentimes characters are based on someone that you know, it's a distant grandmother, but Maltafi, when I wrote the first line, blind people see and hear and taste and smell what other people cannot. That's the first time I knew that she was blind. In the second sentence, but what Maltafi smelled that morning made her sit up straight. I thought, oh God, her name is Maltafi. And sentence by sentence, and something very horrible happens in the very early moments of the book. Because now I know that she's blind and she's sensing the world in a way that other people can't sense it. Very soon I had to discover why she was blind, and I won't tell you what happens, but it's not pretty. And something very tragic and visceral happens, and while I was writing it, I went, oh no, that can't happen to you. She's too lovely a woman. But writing Maltafi, she's a complicated character. I didn't want to write that typical old, wise black woman in the village. She smokes ganja. She helps gunmen to hide things. So she's implicated in all kinds of ways. This young boy is killing people, and she wants to tell him, you have your whole life to live. And she goes, no, I don't believe that. You come from a place where you don't have your whole life to live. And so she became probably one of the most complicated, rounded, wise woman, but in some ways a very dangerous woman as well. And so it's one of the characters I just quickly fell in love with, because you didn't know what she would do and what she believed, but she still had integrity. But she is the one character I've written that is based on no one at all. Yeah.
Right, let's pop the lights up, get the microphones out if we may. Stick your hands up if you've got a question. I think